Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. This particular video is going to be a little bit of a channeled message from the guides, and I wanted to just show you what I'm being shown as I do my walking meditations and some of the information that I am receiving, downloading, uploading, remembering, whatever labels we want to give it. The biggest message that I've been getting in the last 24 hours is reminding ourselves, are we having fun? Are we having fun yet? It doesn't mean we're going to constantly be in that space, but it's so important to recognize our energy and where we are finding our most enjoyment. And the reason is, from a quantum perspective, we are creating our reality. We are creating a sound. This sound has a wavelength, and the wavelength is essentially what I keep being shown is if you have a wave and then you have all this chatter underneath it, my awesome wave. The top is a wave and the bottom is the chatter. We'll just do it like Charlie Brown and his. So what I keep being shown is there's a lot of chatter and it's covering up the background signal. So if we have this wave and it meets with this chatter, okay, so we'll call this part, whoops, this is the chatter. And this is the long wave. So this is kind of in the background, right? And then we're creating this beautiful wave. And this meets up with this and cancels this out. And this becomes more like this rather than vertical. So that's my easy description of what we're doing as a collective. So star seeds, light workers, humans, whatever we want to label it as. Not sure what's going on with my camera right now. Let me pause. So there's a lot of this noise, and whether or not it's, and that's another story. There is some confirmation that I've had recently that there's sounds that are being emitted from instruments all around us, technology, and it creates a barrier in essence, so that's a play on words. Like, it creates this, it's almost as if we're on edge. A lot of us are feeling on edge, right? And have you ever had just a constant noise that's just in the background, and finally you're just like, where is that noise coming from? I need to just turn it off. Especially those of us who are ADD or have sensitive hearing, and many of us, I've mentioned in previous videos, are becoming more sensitive, which is even more challenging to cancel out that chaotic wave. So what's happening is if you picture all this scramble in the background, it's so subtle that we've basically become used to it from one perspective. Just like many other things in our reality, we've adjusted to, right? EMF, chemicals in our foods and water, things like that. We are actually able to adjust to those things. Obviously, if we have an overload in those things, it's much more difficult to adjust and evolve. It can stunt or block our growth or our evolution from one perspective. This is where the higher frequency we consistently have and to hold in order to merge, create the marriage with, the divine union with our heart-centered frequency in our left and right hemispheres of our brain, and really integrate the light and the shadow of ourselves, of our lives, of our choices, of our etc. The more we create a consistent bandwidth, the more we're able to consistently create or produce the chemicals in our body, the thought patterns that allow us to hold, again, to have and hold a certain frequency. And we might call that very simply coherence. If we can stay in this state of coherence, it is difficult for that scattered energy to pull us out of harmony. So this is where the guidance team continually, my guidance team, and this is all shared from my own perspective, of course, my own journey, insists that we must take charge of our charge. We must take charge of our energy and where we are focusing it on and where we are focusing it from. So this is our vessel. Are we focusing our energy from just our left hemisphere of our brain, our analogical? You guys, if you've watched my videos before, you know I like to merge words. So analytical, logical, analogical. Either way, are we running that through our heart frequency, which is our center, that gives us the ability to increase our spin and therefore has an effect on everything, our perspective, our rate of growth and expanse, our rate of understanding, our sensitivity, our ability to counter certain things in our environment that may be increasing the noise. So back to the wave that I was shown, we have this long wave and all this scattered energy. It comes up against each other, and essentially this collapses and is dissolved by Pac-Man by the wave of coherence and consistency. So then we integrate that, we compost it, and it's not to say that that noise or that sound isn't there anymore, but what we've done is we've transmuted it and canceled it out in what I'm hearing is effectively and efficiently. So we're able to utilize some of that in our own way, but we're also able to cancel out some of the lower frequencies that were unable to take form. So what I'm being shown is, let's use the wave again. I'm going to grab my whiteboard. Okay. So we have this wave, and this is us being coherent. And these are the scattered energies and signals, okay, that are essentially, and if we take this and bring it into our awareness and it becomes part of us, then we get pulled into that scattered energy. And then this starts to break up. We aren't able to connect the dots as easily, and we get pulled up into this, which is chaos. But if we can stay consistently and coherently on that long wave, all of those scattered patterns, they're not really holding a cohesive network. It's very distracting, and there is a sound frequency, and I'm going to come back to what I've referred to for years, Dr. Masaru Emoto and the water experiments. You can look up, for example, the difference between listening to heavy metal, and this is nothing against heavy metal. Heavy metal in itself holds a frequency, holds a pattern. And, you know, there's certain heavy metal groups I've listened to and I quite enjoy, depending on where I'm at. But there is some heavy metal that is not cohesive. It's full of anger and rage. And I'm not talking about, and the music itself doesn't have the same cohesive structure. And by the way, there's some heavy metal that has a beautiful cohesive structure. It's just that style or font or the particular sound harmonic that it holds. And not all heavy metal is cohesive. It has a certain shape, geometry. Whereas if you tune into, let's say, a 432 hertz, I think I got that number right, it holds a pattern, it holds a frequency, and it has a cohesive shape, a cohesive sound, and there's a feeling that both of those are associated with. Or we could say classical music, Beethoven's, I don't remember which symphony it is, but that holds a frequency, a shape. It looks like a beautiful snowflake versus like a scattered energy that doesn't really have that same cohesive structure. So what are we tuning into? Now, granted, we have this background, let's say heavy metal, and this is the play on words, by the way, you guys. I'm not picking on heavy metal music, but let's think about what heavy metals do to our body, because I utilize all of the information that's coming in and I'm utilizing it for multiple purposes. And heavy metals, when they come into our body, create a disharmonious environment when we have too many, and it becomes toxic. And what it does is it makes it very difficult to hold a cohesive structure. Our brain patterns are disrupted, our attention span is disrupted, how our body operates is disrupted, and that's why it's so important for us to do heavy metal detoxes from time to time. So this is symbolic of we are constantly being bombarded by heavy metal, and not the good kind necessarily. It's more of a constant undercurrent or sound that is a cohesive, somewhat cohesive architecture that creates a pattern in which we get used to it. And so we operate inside that structure. This is not exact, but this is what I'm seeing. But now, many of us are creating a cohesive structure in which we're canceling out, like noise canceling headphones, that architecture. It doesn't mean that it's not there. It means we're overriding it. And as we override it, we are able to hold together a new pattern that was not necessarily available or tapped into before, because more and more of us are actually doing this. And I was shown a cube. I was told cubometry, like geometry in a cube. And again, not my strong point, mathematics or geometry, but in this dimension, in this reality. But apparently in other dimensions, I must be a mathematician. It's hilarious. My point is, I was shown this cube and all these little bubbles inside the cube that all move and change shapes and change forms. But what I was shown is it's pushing out that particular shape of reality, and let's call it 3D. And I was shown the Platonic solids. So in the Platonic solids, there's the pyramid, there's the cube, and they're built, on top of each other. And Dan Winters has a really good model that he's used, which I need to get back in and look at some of his work because it's been quite a while since I've dipped in. And it might help make sense of some of the things I'm downloading. But essentially, he calls it the Star Mother Kit. So I would encourage you to look that up. I think his website is fractalfield.com. Very confusing website, just as a heads up. For someone, I do have a difficult time focusing on that particular website, but it's full of just amazing information. And the Star Mother Kit shows how there's he calls it, I think, the jitterbug. But what I was shown is we're creating these bubbles inside of the cube. And each of these bubbles holds a frequency or a geometry. And the more cohesive we are, the more it expands, or the longer the wave goes, and therefore our environment has to meet or match what it is that we are creating, because that's the rules. And we are the ones creating the rules. So we're saying we've grown, we need more space, we need more shapes, we need more sounds. And essentially what I was shown is there's a game piece that's been added to our reality that wasn't available to us before. And I'm going to do a video specifically on this because I'm going to go into a little flow right now. But I just was shown that cube going out farther and expanding more. So everything has to reorganize now on that game board in order to fit and hold our, let's call it, level of consciousness. We've leveled up. So therefore, everything kind of folds and remorphs in our reality in order to fit that schematic. So I will go into that in more detail. I have to go back and play the recording and kind of write some things out. So let's just flow for now, shall we? So just taking a deep breath in and out and breathing into the space or the center of our sphere, of our reality, clearing the fear that is being programmed into our reality, or that has been programmed into our reality, and finding our true heart-centered reality, the space in which we really come from, the space in which our, I'm hearing, come from and circumference. For as we expand this bubble, we expand everything, and all that we know expands because we come from this space that has expanded. Therefore, we have access to more. And as we have access to more, we expand more, and so on and so forth. So as we come back into this deeper space of recognition, and as we tune into that which it is that we are accessing, we create a new song. We create a new sound. And because of this new sound, it reconfigures how it is that we sound out our etymology. This is a play on words. I'm going to do some light language. Mishuku wa shini ki ishikoyena. Ya wo kushini wa tu ashtu kuni baku ene wa hishini ki ayat en uashia. Mua kuaya he diale ek unilia tu stilia amakuni dile ashu ekinila tu eshiti anu kuwa ese shunu kuwe. So these different languages, for example, are a linguistic display of frequency bands or font signatures that are merged together or woven in a matrix or matrice or matrix or a C. So much is coming through. A frequency or bandwidth in which the communication is expressed or spelled out, expelled. And as we share these signatures of sound and frequency, it can be felt or understood at a certain layer of technology, a certain level of our technological understanding of our technology tree, a technology tree. For we are the technology. We are the speakers of this sound, and therefore, as we speak, we sound out this deeper residency that we are accessing within our own home-based signature frequency. Each of us has a frequency. Each of us has I'm seeing like when we sign our name, everybody has a different signature that they write that can identify who they are. And have you guys ever had, like, there's people that read signatures. It's almost like reading tea leaves or reading a card or interpreting the field. And so they look at that signature, or people that read photographs. It holds a frequency that we can understand. Okay. So when we're reading these signatures, it just holds a frequency. It's almost like a mood. You know, when you change your font, and I've talked about this before, you're going to choose the difference between Comic Sans or Sans, however you pronounce that. It has a certain energy. It's fun. It's more easygoing and lighthearted. It doesn't mean that it's going to be Times New Roman. So Times New Roman has a certain energy and a certain signature font to it. So this is something that is seen from my perspective in the quantum field. And we may not know that we're recognizing each other based on a signature or a sound, but we also don't hear Wi-Fi where we don't think we do. But everything has a sound, everything has a resonance. So this is something we may not recognize in the linear or necessarily, but we're picking up on these frequencies and energies all the time as these photonic living particle waves that are constantly interacting with one another. We're all in the same soup. So the signature that we're putting out into the field or the soup is connected to all of us. So the more of us that are creating this coherent signature, the more it will be felt coherently in the field that we are all part of. So this is where I'm really being called to stop for just a moment. And I'm hearing stop, drop into the heart, stop, drop, and roll. Drop into the heart and recognize, what signature am I putting out right now? How am I signing my name? What font am I using right now? And it's okay to use different fonts. That's creativity. That's the beauty of moving with the energies and flowing. But there's a soul signature that each of us hold. And if we're consistently in a place, and I'm being called to differentiate, it's a blueprint, right? Just like our fingerprint. Each of us has a unique and individual one. But ultimately, when we're talking about these waves and expanding at our reality, what I'm being shown is that being in compatibility, so being compatible, it doesn't mean that we're copying one another. It means that we are creating a unique spectrum. Ooh, so much is coming through in regards to that. But we'll just say that when we're aware, uh-oh, I am in anger. I'm feeling angry right now, right? I'm in that angry font. Do I really want to send that out in the field on a regular basis? We're all going to experience that from time to time. But if we're consistently doing that, that is creating a consistent pattern. And our body begins to tune into that pattern. It recognizes that pattern, and it actually creates a habit. And when I say habit, I like to interchange that word with what we wear, a writing habit. It's right, I've talked about this in previous videos, but it's relevant. So we're actually creating what our energy field looks like, what we're wearing. And so that font isn't really who we are necessarily, but it is a frequency that we are consistently holding or adapting. I'm hearing adapting to or adopting as our own. When in actuality, that might be because in part of all these other scattered energies that we're picking up on. And then we're like, oh, I'm going to wear that. I'm going to wear that for a while. And we don't realize that now we've built up this layer of clothing or habits or what we're wearing on a regular basis. And then this is what we now identify as. And other people then feel that projection or feel that layer. And we're not necessarily able to get to the deeper layer, which is the heart frequency. It's covered up with all these other, I'm hearing false fonts, layers that aren't really who we are. And so I'm just hearing it's about us expelling that, letting go of it, expelling it, letting it go. And we have to sometimes let it out. It doesn't mean we don't express ourselves. It just means that we're recognizing the discord, the disharmony, and rather than wearing that as our outfit and projecting that on a regular basis, we start to recognize and become more responsible with our response to this chaotic, scattered energy. Once we do that, even if we just hold, I'm hearing regular attunement, even if we hold attention to the fact that we're recognizing this pattern or habit, that in itself changes the frequency and the vibration and already works in our favor to deconstruct and not necessarily enmesh ourselves into that frequency. It can't connect because all of a sudden we're not in alignment with that scattered frequency. We become a little bit more coherent, and even that slight shift in the field, it's almost like then we miss it. It misses us and it doesn't attach to us like a virus, right? And it's almost, I've been shown time and time again that these wave particles or waves that are all around us are constantly energetically looking for something. And this is, a metaphor. I don't know, maybe it's literal, but they're looking for, if we want to give it life, everything is moving and alive in some way, right? But that's a wave, or that's electricity, that's energy. It actually attaches itself to the a cohesive structure, meaning a similar structure. So it doesn't ever hold the same length though, or ability to stay like that. So I'm hearing like, this is why let's say this discoherent energy needs more of it in order to stay structured, because it loses its structure even with just a little bit of coherence. It cannot hold that frequency because it's not as strong. It's only strong if it has more of it. So we're actually able, one person can counter 10 of that energy, although it isn't always comfortable to go through this. So this is kind of a multi-layered message, but I'm trying to keep it simple in the best way that I can. And so as we move through these layers of deep held, unconscious, habitual patterns of noise, we begin to wipe out certain sounds that were created to wipe us out from one perspective. And that's a play on words. When I say us, I'm seeing we, like the merge of one, the marriage, right? It was created to essentially not allow that to happen. And this is, again, not, I'm hearing people go, who, well, why, well, what, who, what, it doesn't matter. From a higher perspective, it is what it was what it is. It's just, it is. So how do we counter that? It's already been created. So let's not worry and lower our frequency to try to figure out who, what, where, why, when, how. By us creating these waves that are coherent, it actually dissolves that reality. And mysteriously, I'm hearing they won't be able to figure it out. Like the machine will stop working, kind of already has. And that's a play on words, the machine that is the bricks in the wall, right? I'm hearing, we don't need no false control. Or is it forced control? Same thing. So it's basically the destabilizer then gets destabilized. And we are then able to stabilize this higher frequency conduction, because we become the conductors that are more cohesively drawn together, us as a group, as a collective. But it starts with us singularly as the one movement, wave, as the ocean, in order to make this a consistent and coherent, cohesive conduction. So that's the message. And I'll go into another one in part 2. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much for sharing these videos. And thank you to everyone who has been sharing in this journey and continues to share in this journey. The more we show each other gratitude energetically in the field, and the more we just set that intention to go into our heart space and really appreciate what it is that we are co-creating here together, the better. Namaste.